All-star uniforms, sticky substances, major leaguers' use of analytics, and facing his childhood hero. Former major leaguer Jerry Blevins talks about these topics and more next on Beat the Shift. Welcome to another episode of the Beat the Shift podcast. I am your host, Ariel Cohen, and with me as always, Ruvain Guy. How are you, Ruvain?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and we are thrilled to have on our show. Our next guest has 30 career wins in the major leagues with 7 saves, a career ERA of 3.54, 508 strikeouts, and 495 innings pitched. And since this is the Fangraph show, he gave up just a 4% barrel rate over his career, 13 seasons with Oakland, Washington, the Mets, and the Atlanta Braves. And he does the Say Anything podcast presented by SNY. Welcome to the show, Jerry Blevins.
Man, thanks for that intro. I learn something new every time I talk to Fangraphs. It's like 4% barrel rate. That's pretty good. As a guy in the bullpen, missing barrels is legitimately the number one thing that you try to do, and 4%, I think that's pretty successful.
Exactly. Spot on with that analysis there. No, that's a fantastic number, and do that. And before we talk about the rest of our show, just personal. What are you doing these days? Life after baseball.
Yeah, you mentioned the Say Anything podcast. That's fun that I get to host with Doug Williams on the SNY feed. We just, I think today, so the day of recording, we just published the episode we did with John Hurwitz, who's a huge Mets fan. He's also the co-creator of Cobra Kai. He also co-created and wrote Harold and Kumar, directed American Reunion from the American Pie series. So that was really fun, man. I'm just enjoying my post-playing career. I really enjoy doing podcasts and some TV work, and basically I'm loving being home, being a dad, being a father, being a husband, and neglecting all the people that really supported me through my career and the crazy life that is baseball, and I have to shut it off. And now that I'm done, I'm annoyingly present for all these things that people are used to not being around. So it's nice. I'm just enjoying life, a slower pace, and just enjoying it every day.
That sounds fantastic, and great that you're still doing stuff around the game as well. We had the All-Star game this week, and maybe I could just get your quick reactions to the Home Run Derby, Shohei Ohtani, the Celebrity Game, which was kind of crazy, and maybe talk a little bit about the uniforms, whether you like them or not.
I'll start with the uniforms. That's an easy, I really wanted to like them because I like things new. I like trying new things. I like the alternate jerseys getting mixed in. The Mets are going back to black, which now that I'm out of it, I'm not a big fan of personally, because as I was playing, I was like, you guys can't have a throwback to a jersey that was around when I was still playing. Like that doesn't it didn't cover it. But I like the mixing it up. So the uniforms were okay. They looked like batting practice jerseys, but I guess I really missed, and I understand it from the fans' perspective, just having the players represent the team on a bigger level. Like having the guys wear their uniforms on the field is really cool. They all wear their home whites or their road grays, depending. So I thought the jerseys were really cool, but I think they should have went back to traditional for the actual game themselves. What did you guys enjoy them?
No,
I did not like it. No, I did not like the jerseys. I actually hated them. Even the hats, I didn't even like. I liked it more a little bit more traditional. And a lot of the players looked weird in them. It just didn't look right. It looked like, I don't know if you remember this, but the Mets a long time ago had these Jump to the Future jerseys where they were called the Mercury Mets. Those jerseys were hideous, and the All-Star, I think it was the home All-Star jerseys looked similar to that. It was just one bland color, and you need something more. You need back to the way they dress when they're playing, because that's how they got there.
Yeah, I hadn't seen the Mercury Mets uniforms until I saw on Twitter some people comparing him, and I looked him up and I was like, oh man, I'm really happy I didn't have to wear those jerseys as a player. We had
I actually
86
went to one of those games. I went to one of those games. They were playing the Pirates at the time. It was just so bad. It was really bad.
That's a bad look. So yeah, I think it was pretty universally disliked. I like that Nike kind of tries things. Baseball's such a traditional sport, and we move at a slower pace when it comes to evolving. And Nike's really pushing the envelope, and they're gonna get some things wrong. And they're gonna bounce back for it. Hopefully they learn. But I appreciate, being progressive, trying to find new things and push the envelope. But this was definitely a swing and a miss. And hopefully they just do it for like a BP and then go back to the game traditional style.
We had on last night on the show Howard Johnson, and it came up that he wore number 20, right, and so did Pete Alonso. And during the Home Run Derby, in tribute to Hank Aaron, Pete Alonso wore number 44. Amazingly, right after they traded Darryl Strawberry as a protest, Howard Johnson very temporarily switched his jersey number from 20 to 44. That was that blew our minds yesterday.
That's crazy. That is crazy. That's what a random like tribute, like I guess an unintentional tribute to Howard Johnson, who's a great baseball player in his own right.
Yeah. Before we talk a little bit more about baseball in 2021, it's time for our Injury Gurus Trivia of the Week.
Now, every week we usually have a trivia question based on what we're talking about. We're talking with you, Jerry. So this trivia question is actually geared exactly to you. You played with Oakland.
That's a lot of pressure.
A little bit. I'm sure you'll get this answer. I'm pretty sure. You played with the Oakland A's. You played with the Washington Nationals. You played with the Mets, obviously, and 1 year with the Braves. There were 4 left-handed hitters that you faced the most in your career. Who were they?
Yeah, I should get this one. So
yes.
Let's go number 1. Actually, it might have been, I think he might be number 2 now. So Freddie Freeman is one of them.
Correct.
Unfortunately for me, great for Braves fans that we face each other that much. That guy.
Yeah, he was 12 for 25 off of you with a homer.
Yeah, I remember all of them very vividly. Yeah. The number 2, I guess, I think would be Ichiro.
Ichiro was number 2. You did okay against him.
I did okay. Definitely took advantage of him later in his career. Because when I was in Oakland, he was in Seattle. Like, even when I do my job and get him to ground out to second base, he would beat it out like the guy's an animal. Nick Markakis, number 3?
Number 1. You faced him 29 times.
Wow. Okay. Sorry, Nick. I feel like I did pretty well against him.
You did. He was 5 for 29. You did very well against him.
So he could definitely kick my butt, so I won't say that too loud. And then number 4, who would...
Can I guess one?
Yeah, please.
I'm going to guess Bryce Harper.
I was going to say Bryce Harper, but he was in my division. We played on the same team.
No?
I think I'm going to stick
4.
with you.
It is Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper's number 4. He actually hunted twice against you, but it was only 4 for 20. Now, you face these lefties so often. How do you prepare to face them if you're facing them so many times? And how do these new rules where you have to face 3 batters, the extra inning rule and the 7-inning doubleheader, how do all these new rules play into the way baseball is played now, and what do you think of them?
Yeah, so that's about 3 really heavy questions for me.
Yeah.
The approach is very different. So I face these guys so much. Most of the time the game's on the line, right? So each hitter's different. So a guy like Freddie Freeman and even Ichiro too. Freddie's a lot more like Ichiro than he is like Bryce Harper. Those type of hitters that are just really good bat to ball guys are the ones that I really, really had to like prepare for. The guys like Bryce Harper, when Bryce is on, it's a different story. There's not much you can do to get him out. But guys that just want to hit the ball 500 feet are the ones that I could really take advantage of. I know if I execute my pitches that I'm going to get those type of guys out. And if I miss, they're going to hit a home run. It's the Freddie Freemans, the Ichiros, the contact guys, like even the Jeff McNeils of the world, the guys that put the ball in play wherever it's pitched. that I can't really take advantage of something that they do poorly is a lot more cat and mouse, which is what I love. So a lot of it, prep work would be, what are they doing lately? How are they doing? And then mid at bat reads, were they leaning out? Were they late on that fastball? Those types of things. So it's a lot of it's prep work, and then a lot of it, I think where I excelled the most was like in-game management, in between pitches, reading, that kind of situation. So I guess that's the first part. What was the second question?
But before you get to that, by the way, John Franco told me the exact same thing as you, by the way, where he could get those big Barry Bonds, no problem with. Guys are going for but the scrummy little guys who have contact, that's who he struggled to get out, and that's where he had to prepare more and think more each pitch.
I got a good chance to pick John Franco's brain. He was a much better pitcher than I was, but anytime you can, like, anytime I ask him a question, it's a guy that's as accomplished as he was, and we have a similar line of thought, that's when you're like, yeah, I'm on the right track with something.
Right.
So good. Yeah.
Right.
And nowadays they have the 3-batter rule. How do you think you would have fared with that? Because I mean, the age of the loogie, the left-handed specialist, is sort of out the window because you got to get both lefties and righties out.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually think that the loogie, my role, was on its way out anyway because of the way teams were managing their bullpens. I think that was going out the door. There's just so much heavy talent in the game that guys just have such good stuff now, and they're able to develop it quicker, that they're just rolling guys out there that can get their, like, great slider guys. Their slider plays left against lefties and righties. I think it was a rule that would have, if you wanted to put it in, you should have put it in 10 years ago. But I'm not a fan of it, not because it attacked me personally. I'm not a fan of it because I think it takes away a strategy from a manager, just another chess piece that he can move around. I like strategy in a game, and I know the DH is on its way out eventually. No matter what's happening, I think it's pretty inevitable that the DH is going to make its way into the National League too. So you're gonna take away managers' ability to affect the game as it's going on, and I thought that rule was kind of just change for change's sake, and the game was evolving to eliminate it anyway. So that's how I feel about the 3-batter minimum rule.
And the extra inning rule, where if you started, let's say, you started the 10th inning, you automatically get a runner starting at second base. Would you approach the inning any differently? Or, I mean, I know you come into games a lot of time, used to come into games in the middle of an inning, so I mean, it shouldn't really phase you that much. But how would you approach that differently?
Yeah, it wouldn't affect me because, like I said, or like you mentioned, that was my job. Runners in scoring position was most of the time when I came into the game. I don't like that rule because they didn't earn their way there. I am one of the very few, and I spoke this up at one of our executive board meetings at our union, where we kind of feel like you put it out there for our union and guys speak their minds and say what they want. I'm for, if we're trying to speed this up, I'm for having ties. And in baseball, that is that is blasphemy to a lot of people to say that you would rather have a tie. But I think, if you go 11 innings and you haven't come up with a score, or the other team hasn't taken advantage, I don't think you should just stick somebody at second base and then let it play out that way, because that's not baseball to me. Nobody earned that. If you get a broken bat to jam them, moves them over, and then you get another broken bat, that's a run and a loss. Like, I would rather tie a game than lose without earning a loss. So that's just how I felt. So I'm definitely in the minority. How do you guys feel about ties?
I mean, first of all, I think Steve Cohen should suggest that we do a home run derby after the 12th inning. We got the best home run guy on our team, so you might as well suggest that.
That's the truth.
I mean, I don't have a problem with ties. I think ties in hockey used to be fine. I don't know why you have to have a shootout. You have to have a winner. You have to do it quickly. I'm fine with. To be honest with you, I'm fine with the way it was. Like, I remember watching games, and oh my God, it's the 14th inning, and you're glued to the TV, and it's 2:00 in the morning on a West Coast game, and I remember watching games. It's part of the fun. You never know what's going to happen. So,
and the All-Star game ended in a tie also one year. I mean, I felt a little I don't know what I felt after that. It was just very odd to see a game and then a time just everyone just walk off the field. It just didn't seem right.
See, I'm for, if it's not going to be the old way where you just play baseball until it's over, I think you should just stop the game at a certain point instead of creating false action. But, I got my first at-bat in the big leagues in an American League game. Oakland, we were at home against Anaheim. We were in like the 15th inning. We had ran through guys and lost our DH. And I ended up leading off an inning in like the 15th inning. You were not going to see those like random fun things anymore.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants to see Bartolo Colon hit. Why would you need a DH?
Bartolo's a different animal, a different breed of human being. So.
Fantastic. A 7-inning doubleheaders, I don't know if you're a fan or not of it. I personally think it's terrible. I mean, as a fan, earlier this year, I had tickets to a regular game, and the night before was rained out, so all of a sudden, boop, I get 14 innings instead of 9. I was ecstatic. I got more baseball. But then there was some people this year who had a 7 o'clock night game, and they put in a doubleheader, but earlier in the day, and they had to clear the stands, and all of a sudden, your 9-inning game, you just got cut short of 2 innings, and now you only get 7 innings? That's a service cut. I'm not a fan of doing that. That's terrible for the fans.
I agree, and selfishly, I didn't think about it from the fan aspect until now. I was thinking that you would get 14 innings, like you said, and instead you get 7. I think that's
9 for 7. Yeah,
I just figured they would just let it roll, but of course not. I don't know why I would. Having dealt with that side of things for a while, I'm not sure why I didn't point that out. But from a baseball perspective, I don't like it there. I like the extra inning rules more than I like the 7-inning doubleheader, because that
agreed
changes the aspect, the way you manage, the way you play the game, what you do with your starter. Like it completely, it's a different ball game at 7 innings. Your bullpen, your starter usage, when you pinch hit, all that stuff is completely different. And I think that is a big swing and a miss. You're changing the fundamental aspect of the game for the entire game because of shortening it up.
But actually, it's not that bad for this year because all the pitchers, they haven't built up their innings from last year because it was half a season because of COVID. So actually, the 7-inning games actually may benefit the pitchers so they don't get used as much. Their innings stay down a little bit and actually may preserve them and I guess keep them healthier. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think, guys are going to get pulled when they get pulled as far as starters, but what you're doing is you're changing. You're not going to bring in, say, if your guy only goes 5, you're not going to go from 5 like you're up 1 run. You're not going to go to your middle reliever. You're going to go to your setup guy to throw the 6th because the next inning goes to your closer. And so you're going to change. You're going to eliminate jobs. You're going to eliminate useful for like the 3rd, 4th, 5th guy in the bullpen is going to basically be eliminated. And that also, adds to if you're playing a 4-game series and you're trying to get into their bullpen and you really run their starter out after 4 innings, and all of a sudden, instead of having to fill out 5 innings, it would help you in the later games of the series. And now you just let a guy, throw 2 innings and the game's over. Like it just changes. It changes so much of the fundamentals of baseball that I really can't stand it. And if you're going to do it and you're going to allow that, you have to keep it in the rules. Like the no-hitters, you can't just be like an asterisk. It's your fault. You changed the game to that. You can't punish a guy because you shortened the game. He threw a no-hitter. Like, I don't understand.
I agree. And the fact that Madison Bumgarner threw a complete game, that should also be considered a no-hitter, right? I mean, he got credit for the complete game, so he should get credit for the no-hitter, right?
It's crazy where they draw the line these days, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. I want to talk a little about the sticky substance ban. We had players such as Tyler Glasnow who got injured and came on and directly blamed the fact that this change was, or this crackdown, I should say, took place mid-season, and all of a sudden he had to go cold turkey and not using any substances, and he thinks that was terrible timing of MLB. From your point of view, and maybe you could tell me, if you used anything or if you know of others who've used stuff, but there's the hard stuff like the spider tack, there's the old rosin sunscreen. Hey, listen, I pitch my own softball games. I use sunscreen and rosin myself. It helps.
Nice. Yeah. So I legitimately never used any substance until I got to the big leagues because the ball is different. I got up to Oakland for the first time, and at the night game, it's 50 degrees, and you got that marine layer off the bay. The balls are like cue balls. The way they're rubbed up, the way they come out of the package, it's the slipperiest thing in the world. And so everybody knew that the ball was slippery. And so guys, I was like, hey, what's going on, guys? Why can't I hold on to this baseball? And it was, the baseball is terrible. The big league baseball is really slippery. So I was shown how to use sunscreen and rosin, and it wasn't cheating to me because it didn't make anything I did better. It didn't change my spin rate, that I found out later in my career when spin was now, readily available and something that was taught. And guys just did it because you need it for grip. You wanted to be able to hold on to the baseball. You would literally just touch it, rub the ball, and it would become like every other baseball you've played with your entire life instead of being like just super slippery. And then, they didn't enforce it. And so guys found a way to use it to their advantage. Once they figured out that spin is in and the stickier substances make your spin higher, there's going to be guys that find a loophole and figure it out. And so, it's kind of, you shot yourself in the foot by guys cheating. Like, I think the spider tack and substances like that are cheating. It's not going to change who you are. Like, obviously Garrett Cole used spider tack, right? He's the poster child, but he went and threw a CG and had 12 punch outs without it. And so it's not going to make a bad hitter or a bad pitcher a great pitcher, but it's just going to make them that much better. And so it's not on the level of, steroids where you're changing the type of player you are, but it's definitely cheating. Tyler Glasnow, unfortunately, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what it was, but I do know that if the baseball is slippery, you feel like you have to squeeze it more. That is an unfortunate byproduct. I think MLB should have, they've known this for my entire career. Since I got to the big leagues in 2007, it's been a known thing, and I guarantee it was before that. They could have changed the baseball and figured out how to put a baseball that has grip. You wouldn't have to mess with it. Every other league has a baseball that you open up and it's out of the plastic, is ready to go. I played against Japanese teams, Taiwanese teams, they're ready to go. And so baseball, instead of addressing a problem, they just figured they would manufacture one and make the balls fly farther and harder. So I understand guys that were upset that MLB changed it mid-season and just decided to start enforcing it, but it needed to be addressed. Guys were cheating, and they, instead of fixing it themselves and policing themselves, they weren't going to do it, and so you had to stop it. They should have did it the off season before or even 10 years ago, but it is what it is, and I'm glad it's out of the game.
Yeah. And the problem also is that MLB can't go and say, well, we'll allow certain substance, we'll allow sunscreen and rosin, but we won't allow a certain other substance. It's very hard to do that because I guarantee you, if you allow anything, all of a sudden the teams will come up with a bunch of chemists and they'll engineer something that looks and smells like sunscreen and rosin, but it has a lot more grip and it has a lot more tack to it. There's smart guys who can do it, and I guarantee you they will try that. So I think MLB tried to steer clear and say, okay, you just can't use anything. You got to go cold turkey. The question, of course, was the change mid-season the right thing? Because now you're talking about, literally pitchers touching the ball very differently, have a very different feel in their hand.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely should have been addressed in an off season, but it became, they let it go for so long that it became, almost an epidemic where they're teaching it in the minor leagues. All the teams are kind of endorsing it and trying to move forward with that. And so they let it get out of control, and then they panicked and stopped at midseason. And so, you're seeing kind of the result of that. Again, I'm glad it's out of the game, but the problem still remains that the baseball is super slippery. It is legitimately different than my entire life, I've never picked up a baseball, wet conditions, cold conditions, and it didn't feel right in my hand until I got to the big leagues. And I'm like, what is going on? Why is this different? I played baseball my entire life, and all of a sudden I get to the biggest stage and this baseball doesn't feel right. Like, that's a big problem. And so they still have that hanging over them. They need to fix it. It's still a problem. You're going to have issues with it. And so you can't allow, like you said, you can't allow sunscreen and rosin, because even sunscreen and rosin can be taken advantage of if you apply it and reapply it and reapply it.
Right,
you're gonna create stuff that is really sticky, and you're gonna people would abuse that, because you leave you leave a crack or you crack the door to anything, and players have shown time and time again that the reward is too big, and guys are going to try to take advantage of it. And some guys don't even see it as cheating. They're just like, look, if they're allowing it, I'm going to try it. And then if I get caught, I'd slap my hand, from sign stealing to sticky substances to pitchers that were known for scuffing the ball with sandpaper or using a spitter. Like, these are stories told down, and you look at history of guys being in the stands and wearing a different hat for off speed and whatnot. Guys try, and they will try no matter what rules are out there. Guys are going to try, and some people will cheat. You just got to stamp it down when you see it. And MLB failed to do that. And then you see the results now.
Yeah, and, of course, that brings up a big issue in baseball, is that the penalty for getting caught is not that great, and the upside for a performance increase is great. I mean, if you're performing well, your next contract's worth millions of dollars. If you're caught, maybe it's a game suspension, 3-game suspension. I mean, it talks about the whole steroids era where, people would use it, and, I got to get to the big leagues. I'm not going to make any money if I don't get there, so I might as well use it. If I get caught, so what? Got to take that chance. That's a little bit of a problem when you have a pay scale that the very top are making quite a lot more than people who are not in the majors yet or just in the majors, that it allows trying anything you can for an edge, even if it's borderline cheating or cheating.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with you in the sense that I think the punishment for this, for using stick, is severe enough that guys are going to stop doing it. I mean, if like I said, it's not going to make a good pitcher, or it's not going to make a bad pitcher great. Like, it's not that your risk reward. Right. Yeah, and so I mean, the punishment, like, you've seen it. It's pretty much eliminated from the game. I even think, Hector Santiago, I imagine what he had on his glove was from years past, or even spring training. Guys, It takes a while to break in a baseball glove. He probably had it on his hands, and it eventually, over and over, from rubbing it on your hands and putting your hand in and out of your glove so many times, there's a buildup there. I bet he didn't even use it that game, and it was buildup from just not wanting to use a brand new baseball glove. I could be wrong. I could be naive in that sense, but I have gloves here in my office that there's like residue from months of using sunscreen and rosin. It's not I can't touch it and all of a sudden my spin rate goes up, but it's just, from sweat and buildup and dirt and all that stuff. It eventually, just like your shoes or, the scuffs on your shoes, eventually that stuff's going to build up. But I think it's pretty much gone from the game, and I think the punishment has been enough, and maybe the humiliation and embarrassment that goes with getting caught, I think, has shown guys that they don't need it. You don't need it because it's not that much of an advantage. It doesn't make you significantly better, and if you can't make the adjustment, then you don't belong in the game.
And Tyler Glasnow actually blamed it for his injury, but injuries have been up all throughout baseball. Why do you think that is this year compared to other years?
Well, I think it was the shortened season. I think it was the whole year of not knowing what to do, not training the same way, and then ramping it up in spring training on fewer innings. That's been, guys have been getting injured from lack of inactivity the year before, whether it be from, a non-throwing arm issue, like they hurt their knee and had surgery, and then their innings were shorter, then the next year they go out and get hurt. And even from guys that go out and throw 200 innings plus, they go to the World Series. I remember in 15, after the World Series with New York, all these pitchers had shorter rests going into the offseason, so they weren't ready to go at spring training because they actually had to take time off to let their arms recover. It's just there's a science to it, and when you change the schedule that much and change the wear on guys' arms, you're going to have injuries, you're going to have issues, and guys you're not easing your way into it. I think Jacob deGrom has done such a good job, not just like what he's doing statistically is like amazing. Everybody should be talking about it. I'm sure you guys at Fangraphs, like, I've read everything. I've had so many interviews about Jacob deGrom this year that just because I was on his team, or I've seen it firsthand, because he's that good. But what he's done that's kind of been under the radar is monitor his body. He's been able to pinpoint through his delivery when he's off a little bit, and then he's a grown man and such a good professional that he's pulled himself out of situations where his risk for big injuries are at a higher rate. And so he's eliminated those things. And I think that, apart from being the best pitcher on the planet, head and shoulders above everybody else, but his ability to pull himself out when he senses that he's in danger of really injuring himself has been his biggest accomplishment this year. And so with that shortened season, I think guys are at a big risk of really hurting themselves, and you're seeing that.
Yeah, and deGrom certainly is at another level. He's not on this planet. In terms of analytics, and we do a lot of analytics here at Fangraphs, how has the analytics that you were that you reviewed and that was brought to you and presented to you, how has it changed for you throughout your career? Because I know with every 2-3 years, the amount of information and the type of information just doubles. How did you see that progress throughout your major league career?
I've seen it like when I didn't watch video until I got to the big leagues, because there really wasn't a system in place in the minor leagues to watch video and watch your delivery and see. Spin rate was unheard of. Even from release point and, where you're going, your cluster, your spin, all that stuff was brand new. And so I've learned about it as my career progressed. And what I basically learned, I learned what I already knew. I learned what made me a good baseball player, and that's my curveball. I learned why it was good, and I learned how to repeat it easier. In the off season, throwing on a Rapsodo or on a TrackMan, I was able to really hone in what I felt when I threw it, and I could see it and feel it out of my hand and see a result. I could see what it did, and then when I threw one, I was able to realize what was different, and it just makes you. It makes your adjustment. So what makes a really good pitcher different than a great pitcher and somebody that's able to be in the big leagues from just pure talent is being able to make adjustments as quickly as possible. And with all the advancements in technology, pitchers are able to learn what they do best and make the adjustments when they're not doing that quicker. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. And also, I realized that I outperformed what I'm supposed to do, like from all the projections and all of my spin rates, all of that. I've outperformed that pretty much unanimously across the board. Like from a statistical standpoint, I've just overachieved my whole life. And I think that if two things, one, a computer program will never be able to really tell you whether or not you're going to be a successful big leaguer. It might show you what you do really well or give you a guesswork, but it also shows me that there's holes in the data. Like there's just certain things that they haven't been able to track yet. So from the intangibles, from situational hitting or pitching to being able to read in-bat swings, like I said a little bit earlier, you just can't quantify that. And I think that's one thing that's been missing from this data driven, and I'm not anti-data at all. I think it's a huge thing. Like, the more knowledge that you can get about yourself, the better. Like, you're only going to make yourself better the better you know yourself, from pitching to just life in general. If you know who you are and what you're good at and what you're not good at, you're only going to make yourself better. But if that were true, I would never have probably made it to the big leagues, because, like I said, I outperformed all this stuff. And why? What is it? And you can't quantify it yet. I know everybody's trying to figure out, whether it's clutch or guys that when I was coming up, a lot of the guys talked about they have an invisible fastball. Like, a guy throws 88, but he, everybody swings and misses it. Now we know that that's, ride, or it's a high spin four-seam fastball that just looks like it stays up. Like, we were able to quantify that now. I imagine that they're never going to be able to just simulate baseball, and I love that part of it. But I also love that they're trying, and you're learning from it. And so baseball will never. We've. Let me see if I could phrase this. I'm very passionate about this, because I think the end of my career, towards the end of my career, especially the last probably 6 years that I was in the game, so many baseball minds, guys that played the game and really know the game of baseball, have been pushed out really far away from the game. So all the front offices, all the scouting departments, there's no more, or there's a lot fewer people that played baseball. And I'm not saying that you had to play baseball to know a good player or to be able to pick a team. I'm saying that you can't be only data driven. You have to have some people in there that can see a guy or know or character makeup to be able to say, this guy is really good at baseball, but he's a terrible human, and he's going to make your team worse. He might do great statistically, but he's going to drag down your team. I remember, you remember when the Nationals traded for Papelbon, and it kind of, I'm not saying he individually derailed their team, but they took a dive after that, right? And it wasn't because of Papelbon. I think it was because they changed the makeup of their team. They had Drew Storen with like a 1. All of a sudden, he's not your starter or your closer anymore. So he's got a confidence thing going on. You bring in a guy that has a big personality, and you're shaking up. You're like, all right, well, they don't have faith in Storen or even Clippard at the time at the back end. So what's going to go on? And I think you can't quantify certain things in data, and you need an equal amount of people that know what it takes to be on a team or play the sport or seen things. And I think we're on an era now that teams are starting to understand that. So we went from all baseball minds to where you saw Moneyball, and it's just like, this guy, he has an ugly girlfriend, and that means he lacks confidence, so he's not going to be able to play baseball, which is ridiculous. And then you get to the, I never played baseball, but this guy looks really good on paper, and you can put together a whole team. And now you're seeing that didn't work all the way, and you're going to meet halfway in the middle. And I think we're right on the precipice of that sweet spot of data and regular scouting and all that coming together. So it's a super exciting time for baseball.
Yeah, no, there's definitely more than just the pure analytics. There's the other stuff, and scouting shouldn't go away, and it won't. And, of course, I say this being one of the guys who does the projections on Fangraphs. The ATC projections have been dubbed the #1 most accurate projections that are available out there. So
that's awesome, man. Like I said, the more you know, the better. And there's a reason why there's so many really smart people in the game, from GM to press. Like I came up with Oakland when Farhan Zaidi was like coming up with Oakland as well. And that guy is so smart. And you're seeing what that translates to in San Francisco, on a team that's overachieving.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. But Farhan also understands, that baseball is still baseball. And so he surrounds himself with not only smart people, but smart baseball people too. And so he's really done a great job of bringing in really, really smart, data-driven. You have to have it. They're so far advanced data from the data standpoint. They know so much, but they also know how to translate that on the field. And I think they've done a great job. Gabe Kapler, all those guys, they're so smart, and I'm so proud of them with what they've been able to do so quickly over there.
Well, you've actually had a pretty long career just being the lefty and being, quote unquote, like you're saying, overachieving. What would you say was the highlight of your career?
One single highlight?
Well, besides the time you got that RBI single against the Phillies, what was the highlight of your career?
One of them.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, from the time I was a little kid, my favorite baseball player was Ken Griffey Jr. Like I went through the A's were my team. I went through a big time Jose Canseco phase, but ultimately being left-handed, seeing Ken Griffey Jr. swing, his charisma, what he did for baseball for me was really be a superstar. And I remember growing up the whole time, anytime I'm like fantasizing about being in the big leagues, I'm facing Ken Griffey Jr. It's the World Series Game 7. We're up 3. The bases are loaded. Ken Griffey Jr.'s up, right? Every time.
Oh, yeah.
And I strike him out, of course, in my dreams. And then I got a chance to face him when he was I faced him a couple of times, but the first time he was with the White Sox and I was out in Oakland, and they came to play, and it was like 2 outs, and he steps to the plate, and they're like, now batting Ken Griffey Jr. And I'm like, holy shit. It was like one of those moments. Like I remember every pitch. I struck him out on a curveball away. He swung through it, and it was a beautiful swing. Missed. I get to the dugout, like the long walk to the dugout in Oakland. And I'm sitting there giving high fives. The manager comes over and says, great job. So-and-so is coming in for you after the inning. And I sit on the bench, and all of a sudden, like I get just a rush, a wave hits me of like emotion, and I can feel myself like getting teary-eyed. Wow. And I broke a unwritten baseball rule, and I went up to the clubhouse. You're supposed to stay, watch your team hit, and then you can go, do your arm care, get your ice, whatever it is. I'm not crying. I'm not crying on TV in front of all my teammates. So I like rush up the 200 stairs that it takes to get to the Coliseum's clubhouse in Oakland. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I break rule number 2 on unwritten rules, and I use myself. That's actually not even unwritten. That's probably written in your team rules. I call my brother, my older brother, who, taught me everything I know about baseball and put that love in for me. And I'm like, dude, I got to call him. He's going to calm me down. I could feel myself, really getting on the verge of tears. And I'm like, I call him up. I'm like, okay. And I hear him answer. He goes, oh my gosh. He's crying already. He's like, you struck out Ken Griffey Jr. And I like just let it go. And I got it out. I got a chance to face my hero. I got to strike him out in a big league game. Like if I died that moment, I would be so happy. So if there's a highlight, apart from, certain moments in certain games and all that, that's got to be it for me. Facing my childhood hero, striking him out like I've done a million times in my dreams as a kid, and being able to share that moment with my brother, it was a glorious thing. It's something that I cherish to this day, and I've had a chance to speak to Ken Griffey Jr. a few times. He's, everybody says don't meet your heroes because you'll find out they're human. Well, this guy is a better human being than he was a baseball player, and that's wow. Saying a lot. So I'll be forever grateful for baseball my whole life. I'm a fan first, and to be able to have a moment like that is again, like I've got chills thinking about it. I still don't really believe it happened, but that's got to be my single moment.
That's fantastic, unbelievable. Yeah. It's often just the memory of growing up in your childhood and the dream, and that was the part that you fulfilled. I mean, playing in a World Series, if that wasn't your thing, if it was striking out Ken Griffey Jr., just completing that, that's the whole dream, and I can totally understand that. That's amazing.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I'm a fan of baseball. I'll forever love the game of baseball. It's a beautiful sport. It's given me so much. I've enjoyed every moment of it. It's been, it's really hard. Like I said, I've neglected a lot of things in my life in pursuit of being a player at this game. But it's given me so much, and even if I didn't get the chance to play even college baseball, I walked on to my baseball team at the University of Dayton, and like it's so far-fetched for me to ever have played in the big leagues from a small town in Northwest Ohio. No matter what happened in this world, in this life for me, I would have always loved baseball, and to be able to play the game for as long as I did, like I'll forever be grateful to baseball, and I enjoy every moment I can to talk about it and to try to give it back and teach it to the next generation and just show my appreciation for it. From speaking to guys like you, like both of you guys, and talking to kids and whatever it is, like I just love the game, and I hope I've shown that in how I played the game, and I hope to show that continuously, as long as people will listen to me talk about it. So, I love the game. You guys love the game. I mean, you guys dedicate so much of your life. It's your job too. That's something I think as a player, I always appreciated, whether it be, reporters or front office workers or ticket sales, stadium workers. Everybody has dedicated a portion of their lives to the game that I love too. And so I always feel a camaraderie whenever anybody, does anything around the game of baseball. And so, I love the game. It's clear that you guys love the game. So I'm all for any bit of that.
I got a question mailbag question from John.
Oh, wonderful.
And he asks, a little bit of an odd question, what is the most cheesesteaks that you ate in the visiting clubhouse at Citizens Bank Park? And he also asks, as he is an autograph collector, do you have any funny, good, or awful autograph stories?
Oh, man, those are two really good questions. That's kind of an insider scoop in the visiting clubhouse. That's kind of a running tally. Some guys have done some amazing things. If you ever get a chance to talk to Tommy Hunter, he's done some wonderful work in the clubhouse with the cheesesteaks. I personally, in one day, I got down 3, and I ate 2 pregame, and I was like, I'll eat 4 or 5 maybe after the game because they are really good. Except for my stomach hurt so bad during the game that I was like, all right, I got to get to 3 because I told them beforehand they're going to make it. I got to finish it. And then I literally never ate another cheesesteak on game day at the field because I felt so terrible, and I didn't pitch in that game. Thank goodness. I think it would have affected me on the field. So 3 is my limit. So I'm not ashamed of it. It's not the best, but as a guy not known for quantity of food consumed, I think that's a pretty good record.
All right, and autograph stories? Any?
The second autograph story. I don't. I'm not a. Oh, I have a personal story, not anything crazy. So I'm not a huge collector of autographs. I've never been like a huge member. I always felt weird asking my fellow baseball players for autographs, especially like early in my career. As I got closer to the end, I was like, hey man, do you mind signing something for me? Whether it be for a charity auction. But I guess it is kind of funny. So I don't know what it is about me, but when people see me, they assume that my name is Jeremy. Like I'm saying 50% of people when they see me at a baseball field say Jeremy. And whether or not they're looking at my baseball card, even when they look at it and they're like, oh, it's legitimately Jerry, they'll look at it and go, oh, Jeremy, will you sign this for me? 50%. I'm not even like exaggerating. And so I would get sent. So apparently in like 1995, which is even before when I played, there was a pitcher that was drafted by, I want to say, the California Angels at the time, named Jeremy Blevins, like legit a right-handed pitcher. Jeremy Blevins had a sick mustache in the car. Like, so I would get, and, autograph people would send me, 3 cards. 2 of them would be my card, a lefty pitcher, and then the third one would be Jeremy Blevins. And I would be like, all right. And I just started signing them because I honestly I've gotten hundreds of his baseball card, and they're probably out there, Jeremy signed this, but it's me. I did it.
That is a good story. Well, Jerry.
Look at you. Look at that. You're not just a smart guy. You're also funny.
Well, we try here. But no, this is absolutely fantastic on the show. And everyone who listened to this episode can really tell the passion that you have for the game and the passion that you have of every aspect, playing it, analyzing it, just watching it. I know you were watching the game when I spoke to you a week or 2 ago, and watching an extra inning game with the Mets, and you're just passionate about the game. So thank you so much for showing that and coming on the show today.
My pleasure, man, and appreciate everything that you do for the game. Like, you guys push out such good content. I legitimately learned so much about myself. Like, Fangraphs was, like, for me, the first introduction into data and what it meant for me and how I could make myself a better player. And so, thanks for keeping the game alive in so many different ways and doing what you're doing and putting out good content.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again for coming to the show. That'll do it for the Beat the Shift podcast. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Beat the Shift podcast presented by Fangraphs. Follow us on Twitter at beat_shift_pod.